Shift and lift up your vibration. What's up, y'all? My name's Taylor King and welcome to my channel where we talk about self-care from the inside out. If you can't figure out the right techniques for your hair, this is the video for you. If your hair is frizzy and dry and you think you're moisturizing it, this video is for you. In order to have healthy hair, you want to figure out everything that you can about your hair. So this is actually a part 2 to a different video, which I will put over here. That's called How to Get Your Best Hair Ever. And with that, I start to talk about what you should know about your hair. If you haven't watched that one, be sure to click it and then come back. Now, I don't want you to feel boxed in, okay? This is to help you. This is not to make you feel limited. And so there's a lot of different categories, and in them there's a spectrum. So I want you to not take it too seriously, but at the same time know that you can be anywhere on the spectrum with any of these things. I just want to give you more information that hopefully will help you out. So first we have hair density, strand density, hair porosity, protein sensitivity, curl pattern or texture, and color. I hope that this helps you because sometimes we see someone's hair and we think, oh, what do you use? Your hair looks like mine. Then we try it and it turns out like trash because there's something that's different about the hair. Maybe you have the same curl pattern, but their porosity is different, so they have to use different products. So this is a pretty dense video. So if you are watching and you really are interested about one specific category, I'm gonna make sure to put timestamps down below. I'm gonna link some articles down below that helped me when creating this video so that I'm citing my sources. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first one we're gonna talk about is hair density, scalp density. Now, this is a matter of how many follicles you have on your head. You can have fewer, which is low density, which is also considered thin. We can have a medium amount, we'll call it medium density, and then we can also have a lot of follicles on our head, which is thick hair, which can also be called high density. Now, people use the terms thick, thin with other parts of this video, but I personally am just going to use it when it comes to scalp density. How to figure out your hair density. Okay, the first method. You can tie your hair up into a ponytail. You're going to want to take a tape measure, measure it out. If it's 2 inches or less, then you're in the thin category, low density. If it's 2 to 3.5 inches, then you are in the medium range, and then if it's 3.5 inches and or up, then you definitely have thick hair, which means you have higher density. If your hair is not long enough to pull back, then you literally can just take your hand, shift it back, and look. Can you see your scalp? If the answer is yes, very clearly, then you have thin hair. If you can see it a little bit, you're probably in the medium range, and then if you just can't see it all, you're most likely in the thick range. I have thick hair when it comes to hair density, so if you use me as a reference, that is what I got going on. Why does scalp density matter? Well, because it helps you figure out what products are going to work for you. If you have thin hair, you're most likely going to want to use lighter products. Now, understand that there are more factors that are going to play into this, but the idea is that if you have a heavier product, it's going to really weigh your hair down because you don't have as much hair on your head. Medium, you have a lot of choices, okay? If you have medium hair, you can use thinner products, you can use heavier products, but you're going to want to try a good trial and error to figure out what works for you. And then if you have thick hair or high density, okay, you are definitely able to use way heavier products. So that's where you need your heavy butters, your heavier oils, a thick gel. So with this, sometimes people who have high density are going to want to get their hair thinned from their hairdresser. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, I have thick, high density hair. However, I am on the opposite end in the next category. Our next category is strand density, or it's often called hair thickness. Now, I'm referring to it as strand density because I don't want you to get confused with the term from thick and scalp density. This is how thin or large your actual hair strand is. Okay, so you can have fine hair, which we often hear that term. Fine hair means that you have a very narrow diameter of your hair. You can have medium hair, or you can have thicker hair diameter, which means that a larger hair diameter, which means that you have coarse hair. Now, the term coarse is used quite often, I think, when it comes to texture. It has everything to do with how large the diameter is of your hair. So, how do we figure this out? Two different methods. The first one is to take a brush, take one of your strands out, and just rub it in between your fingers. Now, if you can really feel it, like it's pretty large in your fingertips, then you probably have a coarse hair strand. If you can kind of feel it a little bit, it's probably in the medium, and then if you can barely feel it at all, then you have fine hair. You could also obviously just take one individual strand here and try that. Now, I kind of feel mine, and that is because I really have fine hair. So remember, we can be anywhere on the spectrum. While I have thick scalp density, I have fine hair. Another technique is to take just a piece of thread and then take a piece of your hair beside it and compare. The average thread is going to be around the size of a medium hair strand. If it's way smaller, then you have fine hair. If it's way thicker, then you have coarse hair. Why does this matter? Because this is really the thing that's going to help you figure out how to handle your hair. No matter if you have fine, medium, or coarse hair, the key with this is to care for your hair and to be gentle with it. But especially if you have fine hair, you have got to be super careful. Now, another way to figure this out, and there could be other factors, but this might play a role. Does your hair receive chemicals really easily? Does heat affect your hair easily? Do dyes dye your hair quickly? Those kinds of things could be a reflection of how small your hair is. Now, I get heat damage like that, all right? I only straighten my hair like once a year, and I still get heat damage with heat protector on a low heat. So if you're like me, we gotta be super careful. If you have coarse strand density, you lucked out, y'all. Your hair potentially might take more effort with the chemicals, but it can withstand way more than medium and definitely way more than fine hair. If you just think about it when it comes to the width of your hair, if it's small, medium, or large, obviously the thicker the actual strand is, the more coarse it is, then it's going to be more durable. Up next, we have hair porosity. Now, this one for me was a game changer. I had no idea about it. It really helped me figure out how to treat my hair, all right? So the porosity. When you look at the image of a hair strand really magnified, you're going to see these cuticles that lay on the hair shaft, all right? And so with these cuticles, it's a matter of how open and closed they are that tells you what the porosity is, all right? So think of the cuticles like pores, the term porosity. And so if it is really tightly sealed to the hair and doesn't have much give, that would be low porosity. If it's a little bit more lenient, this is medium porosity. Some people call it normal. I'm going to avoid using the word normal because any of these can be somebody's norm, right? And then if it's really open, then that's going to be high porosity. What porosity does is it tells you how well oil and water can pass through your hair. Now, most oils do sit on the hair. Some can go in. But water, that moisture we talk about so often, you want that to be able to get into your hair shaft. How do we figure this out? So there's this float test that's been floating around online for so long, and I don't really love it. I don't love it, y'all. I just feel like, what if you have a lot of product on it? So what I'm talking about is you literally just take a cup of water, you take a hair strand, you put it in, and the idea is that if it floats, it's low porosity. If it's kind of in the middle, medium, and then if it goes to the bottom, it's high. I just don't think that's fair. So I'm gonna give you a technique that I think works. I'm gonna ask you some questions. If these apply to you, then you are probably in this category. If you stand under water and it takes a while for your hair to accept the water, you might have low porosity hair. If you spray your hair with a spray bottle or you get rained on and the water just kind of sits on your hair, you might have low porosity hair. If you tend to find it difficult to find products that actually go into your hair versus sit on top of your hair, you might have low porosity hair. Does it take your hair a long time to dry? Does it take your hair longer than average to process chemicals? All of those things, if they apply to you, then you probably have low porosity hair. Does your hair absorb water easily and then retain it easily? Does your hair tend to hold style super easily? If your hair is curly or really any hair texture, does it tend to have good elasticity and doesn't bounce back really easily? If those apply to you, then you probably have medium porosity. Now, the thing with that category is you heard the term easy a lot, and that's because it tends to make your hair quite easier if you are in the medium category. So then our last set of questions is for high porosity. If you're standing underwater, does your hair get drenched really easily? Do your hairstyles dry really quickly? Do you have a hard time retaining moisture? If these apply to you, then you probably are in the high porosity category. Now, the thing with high porosity is that because the shaft is more open, this is my hair shaft, the cuticles are more open, not the shaft, water can get in just as easily as it can leave. Okay, why does this matter? Because this one, I think even more than strand density and scalp density, is going to tell you what kind of products to use. And I say that because this is really a matter of like getting that right technique for your hair based on how open and closed your hair is, so that you can get the right amount of moisture. If you have low porosity, you tend to get buildup easier, and that is because your hair, you're trying to put more things on it because it's not accepting it as easily, but then you add more and more and it's just gonna sit on top of your hair. If that's the case, you're gonna wanna wash it more frequently. Not every day for anybody, okay? But definitely more frequently. I absolutely recommend using something that says clarifying on it. Clarifying typically means that it has some sort of sulfates in it. Take it or leave it. I know that sulfates are super controversial, but for me, I'm in the low to medium, all right, spectrum. I'm in the low to medium category, and I have to use something that is more clarifying. When you do deep condition, you're gonna wanna make sure to trap in some heat. Now, I personally don't like sitting in a dryer. I don't wanna use that kind of direct heat. I just take a grocery bag, I tie it on my head, and call it a day. Any sort of cap would work for you, and depending on how low your hair is on the porosity scale, technically the lower that you are, the tighter that the cuticles are, you're going to want to add a little bit more heat. What the heat does is the heat opens up the cuticle so that whatever product, whatever it is that you're trying to do, that moisture can get in there. For low porosity, you're most likely going to want to use humectants. Now, a really popular one is glycerin, vegetable glycerin. Humectants are your friends. Also, light moisturizers are going to be good. A light oil is going to be good for you to seal in that moisture, but you're going to want to avoid anything that's too heavy because, again, it's just going to sit on your hair. If you're in the medium category, I used the term easy earlier and I'm just going to say it again. You really don't have to worry about a lot when it comes to this. You can use a lot of different products. They're going to tend to work for you. They're not going to sit on your hair as much. And as you're doing them and figuring things out, if it is, then make a change. If it's sitting on your hair, then make a change. But you have a lot more freedom. If you're in the high porosity category, like I said earlier, you have this challenge of you can accept moisture easily, but you can lose it very easily. You might want to use some heavier butters. You are going to want to look into something that's an anti-humectant. So it's going to prevent that moisture from extra moisture from coming in, especially if you're in a humid climate. You're going to want to do that. And I found for me, even with my low porosity hair, if I'm in a really humid climate, I still want an anti-humectant. To help you really get in your hair shaft, this is absolutely key for you. You're going to want to start, whatever products you decide to use, start with the lightest and then end with the heaviest product. That way you're allowing products to really get into your hair and then you seal it off. And that sealing piece is very important for you with a high porosity because that makes sure that your hair is just not going to like open back up. all right? We're trying to seal and smooth instead of letting the cuticles get wider. Now, please know that your hair porosity can change. If you're using chemicals, relaxers, dyes, heat, that can change your porosity. If you're really rough with your hair, that can change your porosity. And so if you start to realize some changes in your hair, that is because you're doing something to it that's making it change. If you try to treat it like you used to, just because it's the same head of hair, it's not gonna work. You're gonna wanna analyze, what have I done to my hair? And even more importantly, okay, now I need to treat my hair differently because my hair is different. Okay, before we move on to the next category, if you're enjoying yourself, give me a thumbs up. All right, moving on. Up next, we have protein sensitivity. Now, this is pretty straightforward. How sensitive is your hair to protein? And we have two different categories. Your hair could either be sensitive or not. Again, it could be a range somewhere in between, but sensitive or not sensitive. Now, if you have been using products that have a higher protein level in them, and you find that no matter how much moisturizing products you try to use, your hair still feels dry, it could be two factors. It could be that your hair is protein sensitive, or it could be that you're just overloading your hair with protein. All right, how do we figure this out? The egg test. So with the egg test, you shampoo your hair, you get to the point where you're gonna do your treatment. You're gonna take an egg, you can whip it up real good, and then add it to just one section of your hair. Now, protein in itself, when this strand of hair dries, it's gonna be harder than the rest of your hair. But the question is, how hard is it? All right, does it feel like it's going to snap off, or is it just a little stiff but still pliable? If the answer is the first one, that it feels like it's stiff and it's gonna dry off, you probably have some protein sensitivity. If you feel some flexibility going on, then your hair probably is not sensitive to protein. So why does this matter? You wanna have a good moisture and protein balance. And I've talked about this in How to Get Your Best Hair Ever. The thing is that protein is the structure of your hair. Your hair is made of keratin. Keratin is a protein. All right, so protein helps to create the structure of your hair. Now, the next part is moisture. Now with moisture, obviously we are a being that needs water, and so does your hair. That's gonna help it thrive. That's gonna help with the elasticity. That's gonna help with the manageability. Water and moisture is wonderful for your hair. The thing here is that your hair can be too elastic and it's just weak. All right, that means that it needs some protein, or your hair could have too much protein. And if that's the case, then your hair is not going to, because it's so strong, it's not gonna let any moisture flow in or out of it. And so we wanna figure out this balance. And I wish I had a special key that I could give you about this balance, but it is definitely something that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. The first step though is to figure out if you're sensitive or not. Now, I don't want you to think, oh, well, okay, I guess I'm protein sensitive. That means I use no protein. No, absolutely not. Everybody needs protein. It's a matter of how much. So I'm just gonna give you a little snippet of my personal regimen. I shampoo my hair, do my whole process, and when I rinse my deep conditioner out, I take a rice water, which I'll be showing you all soon. And rice water is a very delicate protein treatment, and I love it because when you spray it in your hair, it does give it a little bit more of a foundation, a protein foundation, but it's not too much for me. The only other time that I actively am putting protein in my hair is I do the Aphogee two-step, keratin something. I'll have to figure that out, what the name of it is. But when I do that treatment, I do it once every 2 months, month and a half, so 6 to 8 weeks, which is what I believe it's recommended, and it makes my hair stiff, okay? You spray it and then you sit it in the dryer, and my hair literally is frozen. It's frozen in place and it feels like ramen noodles. But when I rinse it out, it gives me this, like I said, foundation for my hair and the protein, and I don't have to use it for another potentially 2 months. So that's what I have done, and that's what I figured out for my sensitive hair. But you just gotta play with it and It's that trial and error like everything else in here to figure out what's going to work for you. But again, the first step is my hair sensitive or no? Now we have curl pattern. Curl pattern, I feel like in the natural community is consistently talked about. And I just want to preface this, that this category and the next one, color, don't matter that much. And I'll tell you why. So curl pattern, what is the texture of your hair? And there are different curl texture systems, but the one that I'm going to refer to is what I think is the most popular. And we have one that is stick straight, 2 is a wave, 3s are your typical curls. So the 3s can be curly, but I think it's deceiving to say curly and then kinky. Like there's a lot of things that can happen in between that. We've got curls in the 3s, and then in the 4s, your pattern could be, it's much tighter than the rest, but in the 4s, your pattern could be a curl. Your pattern could be a zigzag. You could have almost no pattern text, but your hair is very textured. So there might not be a defined pattern in your hair, but you have a lot of texture in your hair, and you can be in the 4s. Why does this matter? If people are going to recommend like, oh, this product's really good for 3 hair, but your curl pattern really doesn't tell you that much. It's the strand density, the scalp density, the hair porosity, the protein sensitivity that are going to tell you more information. Now, what you should know, the more textured your hair is, the more delicate it is. And I think there's this huge level of confusion about tighter hair textures and the assumption that it's going to be really strong and that you can do whatever you want with it. And no, no, no. Okay? The more bends you have in your hair, those are potential places for breakage. Your hair can be weaker at that bending place. If you have really tight hair texture, you especially have got to be so careful. That is the piece that makes this category important. You know if your hair is textured or not. Now you need to treat it that way and be really gentle with it. And our last category is color. So hair color, y'all know what this means. What color is your hair? Now we have the standard 1 through 10 with these colors. And my natural hair color is a 2. I know this because I have compared my hair to the dyed pieces that you can find in a shop. I've also gotten enough braiding extensions to know that the 2 blends in really naturally with my hair. Now, you see the scale and you see 1 through 10 and you don't see any red hair color. And red is natural. But your hair can be a 4 and then the tone can be red. Your hair can be a 4 and the tone could be brown. And I'm not a colorist, all right? I'm not even gonna go too deep into this because I don't claim to know that much about it. So why is color important? Only if you really wanna dye your hair. So if you wanna dye it, it's going to be less damage if you keep it close to your natural hair color. I think knowing the color of your hair can help you if you wanna get extensions. Like I said, I know to buy a 2 if I want it to match my hair. In the summer, I get a little frisky and I get a 4 sometimes. Okay, so you know what to do with your hair. So what is my hair? So I have medium to thick hair. I have fine hair. I have low to medium porosity. I have protein sensitive hair. My hair texture is 4A mostly, a little bit of 3C, probably a little bit of 4B in here. And my hair color is a 2. As you've gone through this, let me know down below, what is your information? What is your hair like? And if you're still trying to figure it out, check out the links that I've put down below. They might give you a little more information to help you. And so yeah, share that with me. I'm curious to know what your specifications are. I hope that this video was helpful for you. If it was, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more of me, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you next time.